Hello, everybody. How's it going? So, it's easy to say that The Walking Dead is a pretty successful TV show. Really huge property. I think at one time it was probably the biggest creator-owned comic book franchise ever. Like making the most money, and I'm sure it probably still holds a pretty tight spot, if not best. But this video is not for the comic book. This video is for the TV show because I'm more of a fan of the TV show. I've read some of the comics, but they kind of got away from me. They was too far along, and I just never got the time to really catch up. And I've always been far behind. But I do like the show. Like people kind of argue that the show has gotten aggressively worse as it's gone. Me personally, I think the show is at a great place now. I think the show has been way better in the last few seasons than it was in the middle. Like for me personally, I feel like the first two seasons were really strong. Then it kind of like teetered it off between seasons 3 and 5, and then like season 6, whenever they got to like Alexandria, like it really started to kind of pick up, and I really started to like the foundation they were building at that point, and the way they were kind of moving with the story. Because I actually really enjoy the whole rebuilding civilization, having these territories. I actually really like that. It's a lot better than them just walking around, finding new camps every season to try to hold on to. That was getting boring. But I'm kind of rambling about that. This video is about my my top 10 favorite Walking Dead characters from the TV show. There are a lot of characters in the TV show that are vastly different from the characters in the comic books. There's also characters that are completely new, made for the TV show. So, yeah, so there is that. And this is a spoiler warning, I will be probably mentioning stuff that happens all the way up to the current season, which I think is 8 or 9. I can't remember anymore. But let's go ahead and get into it. Why don't we? I'm going to start off the list with my honorable mention, which is Beta. Now, Beta, the main reason why Beta is on the honorable mention and not in the actual list is because he's a very new character. He hasn't had a whole lot of screen time, so it's kind of hard to say like really where he's really going to land in the higher hierarchy of the show. But right now, he's an awesome character, very badass, a great villain too. Like for you guys that don't know, he's the right hand man of Alpha, who is the leader of the Whisperers, which are basically like the new antagonists of the show. They're a nomadic group of humans that dress themselves up in camouflage of zombie camouflage. They hide themselves within the herds of zombies, and they whisper to each other. And they basically they're like shepherds. They herd the zombies towards different camps and civilizations. They've got this very anarchist type of philosophy where they want to help the zombies take over the world because the zombies are the new, inheritance of the world. It's really interesting philosophy, and I really like the characters. And Beta is just great. He has some really great line deliveries. I really enjoy the actor that plays him, and he's got this very towering, intimidating feel to him. That fight with Daryl was amazing last week. So yeah, he's definitely going to be big. At number 10 is Maggie. Maggie's a character that really kind of grew on me. She really changed over the course of the show. When she's first introduced, she was kind of like the eye candy. She was the hot farmer's daughter that, seemed like she was way too much of a hottie for Glenn to get, but Glenn was able to, marry her basically. And it was really crazy, the whole story arc of her and her father. And, and she was always she was always a fun character, like the badass southern, girl next door kind of character. But yeah, like she's really kind of grown into this much more powerful, confident, leadership, role. I'm very, for spoilers for the new, season 9 or whatever, I'm very, disappointed that, her character just kind of had an off-screen, exit. We never even really saw her final moments in the show. It was kind of, I know it's the whole thing with behind the scenes, but it was just kind of annoying. And, that's why she kind of got bumped a lot farther up the list than she probably would have been before. But I do like Maggie. She's a fun, great character. At number 9, we have Jesus. I really enjoyed Jesus. Ever since his first appearance, it was a really fun episode. Him running around with Daryl and Rick, and it was just really interesting physical action in that episode. What I like the most about this character is just his kind of blend of being this badass physical martial artist kind of character, where they don't really even explain how he learns that kind of fighting stuff. But I was really enjoying the mixture of his martial artist and fighter stuff, and also kind of his weird stealth that he does. He's a very sneaky character. He's a very hands-on character. And as we get farther in his storyline, we see that he's also a very political, a very motivated character, great leadership character. it's kind of disappointing that he dies the way he does. It's an amazing death scene, don't get me wrong, but just the fact that like he doesn't get as much screen time as he really should have, like he's a great character. I mean, and that Walking Dead has a problem with killing off their newer characters that they're establishing before they really get to do as much as they could do, and then they leave these other characters around like their legacy characters, and it's like, But yeah, I really enjoyed Jesus. Like I love every fight scene he's in is just was greatly done. This guy could kick a zombie like nobody else. At number 8, we have Herschel. Herschel was a great character because he was something a little different in the show. You know, in the show full of characters that were very morally ambiguous, Herschel almost was always very consistently the moral high ground of the show. Like, you know, he was always that guy who wanted to find a different way. They wanted to show the enemy's mercy, and there's a certain level of respect for that. Yeah, there's other characters that did that stuff too. Like, you know, Dale was the original one. But, you know, like, there's a certain level of respect for that. And also just his wisdom. He was a very wise character. He was always giving these pep talks to Rick. And you can really see that his conversations with Rick have stayed with Rick throughout the show and really kind of guided him into the character that he is. And, I mean, and you know, and when he wanted to be badass, he could be badass. That was what was great about the character. He could go from being this wise grandpa to this badass grandpa with an infinite ammo shotgun, if you know what I'm talking about. At number 7, we have Abraham. Abraham was a great addition to the show. I really enjoyed the actor that plays him. He has this physical kind of prowess to him that just really, like, you know, you just really enjoy watching him. He's just a treat to watch. He's got that great kind of like dark humor to him that he's always throwing out like just these obscure, you know, most weirdest sayings or like, you know, insults. He just makes up these crazy insults, and they're just always fun to hear. Plus, he was a badass character, and like he was just like kind of like this military jarhead guy who was just like a badass, and he had that kind of like discipline and like, you know, strategy that, you know, that like a general would have. You know, I really liked his character. I always thought it was kind of interesting that he didn't really like butt heads with Rick more for leadership, but you could always see that there was a respect for him ever since, you know, Rick helped him get out of Terminus. You could see that, you know, Abraham really respected him, and he was like, yeah, sure, this guy knows what he's doing. I'll let him lead. So I like that. I like the concept of that. But he is a really interesting character, and I always felt like if something would have happened to Rick early on, which yeah, it never would happen, but that Abraham could have took over the reins pretty well. At number 6, we have King Ezekiel. So like I said in the beginning of the video, when the show started getting into these different territories and like these different like settlements kind of coming together, building a new world, that's when the show really started to kind of become something special in my eyes. And King Ezekiel was a great addition to the whole world building. He really kind of elevated that whole new world order kind of feel that the show was going for. You know, he's the leader of the kingdom, which is kind of a backwards community. They, you know, like Ezekiel went for a more traditionalist, like, you know, like almost like a medieval feel with his kingdom. They, you know, his soldiers walk around in armor, and it's really cool. He has a pet tiger that was like badass. He's a very eccentric guy. You know, his background is that he was a actor in a drama play. So he's got this very like interesting persona that he puts on for his people. He's a very interesting character. There's a lot going on with his character, and I'm interested to see like where it goes from here. At number 5, we have Carol. Carol is a character that, man, if you would have asked me during season 3 on up, or season 3 on down, if I thought Carol would be like on this list, I would have said, hell no, she's my least favorite character. She was besides Lori, she was like my least favorite character for the longest time. But she really has shown a ton of character growth throughout this series. Ever since her husband and her daughter died, they had to kind of repurpose her character, honestly. So, like, before she was just kind of like the wife character, but now that she doesn't have that family, her character is taking such a dynamic turn. She's become like one of the most badass, one of the most clutch and most craftiest characters on the show, and I love her for that. At number 4, we have Murrow. Man, Murrow was a great character. I love this character. He's one of those characters you love to hate. You know, like he's not really meant to be like this. And you're not meant to respect him or anything. You're just meant to like enjoy him. He's like the bad boy character, really over the top. You know, kind of racist, just a douchebag in general. But he's like this douchebag you can't help but like enjoy watching him cause destruction and whatnot. And for the first couple of his first couple episodes are great, but he doesn't really do a whole lot. and then he's kind of like off the show for almost a whole season. And then in season 3 they brought him back, and he had this great story arc in season 3 where he was kind of, he was the bad guy at first. He was like on the governor's side, and then he eventually switches sides with his brother and all that. But then they killed him off, and I was really disappointed because I thought they could have did so much more with his character. But he's a great character. Michael Rooker, I think his name, is a great actor, and he really does this guy justice, and makes you just, he's a lovable douchebag that you can't help but just enjoy watching him do work. At number 3, we have Morgan. Morgan is a character from the very first episode. Like, one of the few characters from the first episode that's actually still around. That's crazy. Well, I guess technically he's not still around because he just kind of moved to the Fear the Walking Dead. But I mean, that's debatable. He's a great character. I've always really enjoyed Morgan. He's always kind of had that he always had that wise guy kind of feel to him, and it's become more and more strong ever since he kind of come back in the middle of the show's run. He was gone for a long time, but when they brought him back in full force with a really cool outfit. They gave him this training with the bow staff, and kind of gave him this Zen personality where he didn't want to actually kill anybody, even humans or zombies alike. Well, he kills zombies obviously, but it's a fun character, really badass character. He's one of the best hand-to-hand characters for a long time. I always enjoyed him. I love him and Jesus fighting that one episode because they're just two really great hand-to-hand characters. And the only bad thing about Morgan is that his character kind of flip-flops a lot with his whole belief system. He'll go one season and he's killing everybody, and then he's going to the next season and he's all zen trying to save lives, and then the next season he's clear. It's a little inconsistent with his character, but overall I do really like the character. But the inconsistency is what kind of keeps him from being at my number 2. At number 2, we have Daryl. Daryl has to be the most popular, established character that's not even in the comic books. He was created for the TV show, and Norman Reedus, the guy that plays him, just does a great job, man. Really showing off this, this badass with the heart of gold. There's so much to like about Daryl. There's so much that he's so useful. He's one of those characters that you would just want to have him in the zombie apocalypse. He would be first draft pick, obviously. He's just a great character. I love his weapon of choice. I'm a big archery nut, so having a character with a crossbow is great. I really enjoy that element of his character. I like the whole hunting, tracking, outdoorsman kind of persona. It was the same thing with Locke and Lost. They're just great characters, especially in these kind of settings, and they really get to shine. His backstory is interesting. We get little by little as the show goes on, and he shows a good amount of character growth. He does flip-flop a little bit like Morgan. Not as bad, but there is, in the newer seasons, he has kind of flip-flopped a little bit. But I really enjoy his character. He continues to be amazing. My number 1 pick is Shane. So, if anybody really knows me that well, they would know that this was obviously my first pick. But, in the show full of badasses, Shane he just overgrew everybody. You noticed this guy. He had that great tough guy exterior, but he really did care about the people that he cared about. He really cared about, and he was a complex character. He was very conflicted, and I enjoy that. I like his weapon of choice, the shotgun. He's a badass. The actor, this was the first time I really ever got introduced to this actor, and I love this actor now. Everything that he plays in, I'm just completely sold on it, and it's because of this show, man. And I really like his interactions with Rick. They had a really interesting relationship going on, and their clashing of ideologies was really interesting because, you could argue that Shane's philosophy on how to survive in the zombie apocalypse was actually more effective than Rick's. Maybe not morally the high ground, but it was probably more efficient and for actually surviving. He had more of every man for himself, ideal system. And that's kind of what made Shane so great, because Shane was the kind of guy that he wasn't just gonna throw people to death, but if it meant he get to survive, or him and Lori and Carl got to survive, then he would let everybody else die, because that was his priority. He prioritized this is my woman and this is her son. I'm gonna keep them alive. Everybody else is expendable, and I love that idea. And going by that logic, Shane was probably a better leader. You could argue that if Shane was still alive, that maybe Lori and Carl would still be alive. It's kind of crazy when you think about it like that, but I just really enjoy the character, like all his arguments with Rick and his fights with Rick, and there's just a great character. Uh, you know, what can else I can say about him? He's my favorite character in the show. So yeah, there's my top 10 picks for my top 10 favorite characters of The Walking Dead. Obviously, there's some big powerhouses I didn't pick, like some of the main stars of the show. But this is my personal list. It's not a popularity contest. I'm not gonna pick people like Negan and Rick and Michonne just because they're fan favorites. I'm not the biggest fan of those characters, so I'm not gonna pick them. But thank you guys for watching this video. Let me know in the comments what your favorite Walking Dead characters are. If you even still watch the show, if you're a fan, let me know. See you guys later, and thank you for watching. I really appreciate it.